been in Toastmasters since 1994. I've been a member of many clubs, the John Nelson Classical Speaker Club. Every single time I've been asked to talk about the exciting life of a Navy SEAL. This is the first time I've ever given this speech talking about the exciting things that may have happened to me during my 10 years as a Navy SEAL. There was a lot of things. I had like over 385 dives, 770 free falls. That's exciting. It's the most fun you can have with your clothes on. I've had some situations that were pretty scary. In Puerto Rico doing jungle warfare training, one of my buddies right next to me got his arm blown up by a grenade. That was, I thought he was dying. And, we're still really good friends to this day, but it was heart-wrenching that happened. My first platoon, was kind of anticlimactic. Went to the Persian Gulf when the Vincents shut down the Iranian Airbus, and they called a ceasefire. Acronym SEAL changed to supply equipment and labor. Our platoon pictures, instead of being all jacked up with our combat gear, we were in coveralls and carrying paint guns and brooms and mops. That was our platoon picture for that deployment. My next deployment was to Panama. I was in Panama 6 months prior to the Panama invasion. I got to see all kinds of things in Central and South America. We got recalled. We deployed back to the States, and then 2 days later, I was in Operation Just Cause. And we had trained to do this mission for 3 years. And we taken our boats across the bay at night to Paitilla Airfield. And my 60 gunner was from New York, big, hairy, burly Irishman. And our officer was right behind us, and he just started saying, okay, when Mr. Olson gets shot, this is what we're gonna do. And Mr. Olson's like, I knew what he was doing, he was messing with it. And we get to the beach, and I was the last one off the boats. And I'm looking around, and all the boats are floating away. I'm like, I can't believe this. So here I am, policing up all the boats, securing them so they don't float away. And then I had to climb up this jetty, and luckily my feet knew where the high points were. I didn't step in a hole and break my leg or nothing. And right when I got on the tarmac, the shooting started. And I was about 40 to 50 yards away from my squad, and in between, our rear security team was in a firefight with some Panamanians in a hangar. And I had to get on the other side. And I'm thinking like really fast, and this thought in the top of my head, my guys probably aren't gonna shoot me. And I took off. I only weighed 140 pounds, and I was carrying 110 pounds of bullet squadron radio on my back. And I'm in a full sprint. And right off the bat, a bullet goes past my ear. I could feel it, the wave of the air past my head. And I started stepping up, and bullets are skipping across the asphalt in front of me. I didn't stop, hesitate, or slow down, but I made a conscious effort to pick my feet up higher and faster. I was high stepping across that runway, and when I got through it, my heart was like beating in my throat. And my squad had just secured a Panamanian who was in a hangar. They tied his hands behind his back, and then I am hearing Lieutenant Connor screaming he had gotten shot. And he was screaming in pain in my ear. And we're rushing up to the north end of that runway. My job was to secure the hangar and the entrance into the runway, in case any of the Panamanians, their quick response forces came in. That firefight across the runway was so intense. It was like 8 M60s online, hammer down. They were lobbing 40mm grenades into that hangar, just blowing. It was like the ground was shaking. And then my officer said, come on. So I'm running across, and I hadn't taken very many steps, and all of a sudden, I make direct eye contact with my roommate, Isaac Rodriguez. He had been shot in the lower part of his left chest. He had shot in his eyes, all glassy, and it was like a bolt of electricity went through my body. I didn't stop, because he already had the chief corpsman working on it, and I had to get into the firefight. And as soon as I got online, they called a ceasefire. But then our 60 gunner comes up, and he starts shooting again, and everybody starts shooting again. And I'm like, I don't see anybody to shoot. And then they finally got the ceasefire. Got to stop shooting, and it was like a bus accident. We had 4 dead and 8 wounded. I went in and grabbed one guy, patched up. He got shot in the shin, taken him to triage, and then I grabbed Tillman. He was a 60 gunner. He was really heavy, and we had to take his gear off so we could move him, because when you're dead, gravity wants you really bad. You're really heavy. And we dropped him, and his head hit like a bowling ball. Felt sick to my stomach. But he was dead already. And took him and laid him next to Mr. Connor, like taking out the trash. Grabbed the next guy, was Don McFall, who was the chief of my platoon. I knew him really well. And took him over there. We were in a perimeter waiting for the medevac to come. It took 2 hours for the medevac to get there. In the meantime, all of a sudden it was like a train timeout. The Panamanian ambulance and fire department came because there was a fire going on in the magazine and ammunition rounds going off. And they police up their dead guys and put the fire out. And then a bus pulls up north into that runway. And guys started coming out. I saw they had camouflage on and H gear. We put steel pots. I couldn't see weapons, but I'm sure they had them. And right as the last guy got behind that bush, I got the order to light him up. And I started shooting in the bush and put a flare up over where I thought they were and shot into the bush. And I saw something move. I didn't know if it was sticks or legs or arms. And like 50 rounds, I'm like, they called a ceasefire, and I got snot and drool all over me. I was like, holy crap, what happened to me? That night, later on the next day, they had threatened that the Dignity Battalion was going to take over that runway. These were civilian militia, and I was visualizing hordes of civilians armed with machetes storming the fence, and I was praying to God I had enough bullets. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, they called a ceasefire, and my shooting partner for last three platoons, Raul Valdez, we both looked at each other in unison without rehearsal. That sucked! And thought in my mind, we're Navy SEALs, that wasn't supposed to happen. Why did that happen? The Vietnam vets had taught us, you don't engage the enemy unless you have the element of surprise, cover and concealment, or superior firepower to your advantage. And you don't put your weapon down until the enemy's either dead or out of range. And because of that is why we had so many casualties. But I stuck by those standards the rest of my career in the military, and I would go off on anybody, I don't care what their rank is, if they stepped outside of those parameters. And those experiences still live with me today. You know, I don't engage unless I know I'm going to win, and I don't quit